So we're going to talk about pointers and references, but before we talk about pointers and references, I want to talk about understanding how to allocate and deallocate dynamic memory in C++. So you'll remember at the very beginning of the semester, I started talking about how C++ is a really powerful program because as a developer, you have access to the memory and the actual hardware on your machine. So we have to understand how that works and kind of the shape or a diagram that we reference a lot of the time for the different parts that are kind of going on. You have that stuff, and it's kind of important to know when you create something in memory, where it's being created, and when you'll lose access to it depending on what happens in your program. So that's a really powerful feature of C++, but with power comes great responsibility. So before we get into pointers and references, which talks specifically about allocating chunks of memory, we need to understand the heap. And so I found this great video, and I don't know if it'll always be available, so I just took a little screen recording of it from study.com. You can find it there. I just want to source them. This is not my video, but I've just copied the video and posted it here just in case, in the future they take their video down. I thought it was a really helpful video, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't lose access to it if they ever stopped hosting it. So I'll just play this here. Let me know if you can hear the sound coming through. If not, you can find the video here, watch it on your own time in the week 10 folder, but we'll play this. It's a couple minutes long, I think, and then we'll get into the PowerPoint.
One of the coolest and scariest features of C++ is that you can work directly with memory usage of a program. As a programmer, you can go grab a chunk of memory from the operating system, use it, then free it up. But need to watch out for memory leaks. When we use dynamic memory, we're using memory on the heap, whereas local variables are allocated on the stack. This figure depicts how the memory corresponds to code. Note that heap memory is also called free memory. Think of a memory leak in terms of an oil change on a car. If you don't tighten up all the bolts and seals, you will leak oil. The same is true for memory in C++. With a memory leak, if you set aside a bunch of memory for use and never give it back, if it's on long enough, they're big enough, your engine, computer, is going to seize, crash. Keeping the warnings aside, let's walk through each of the C++ functions that are used for memory management. There are a few functions that you can use to allocate, reallocate, and free up memory in C++. Let's look at them in a bit more detail one at a time. 1. Malloc. The malloc function is a carryover from C. You can still use it in C++ in order to allocate a block of memory for your program's need.
Okay, so they go on to talk about a bunch of different functions, and we're not gonna talk about all of the
Various
functions
features of C++.
because we'll actually talk about some of our own today. So we're not actually going to talk about the malloc function that she talks there. That's more for C, but you can use it in C++. It stuttered a little bit. I see that you guys said in chat. So watch it on your own time if you find it really helpful. We can also look up, dynamic memory allocation C++ diagram. You'll see this kind of, diagram a lot where they talk about the stack and the heap. And if you make something on the stack, it's a local variable, right? And the heap is actually something called dynamic memory, right, at runtime that we created. And if you create a block of code in the heap that you can use from your RAM, you need to actually deallocate it later, or else you'll have a memory leak, is what she was talking about, basically. So she referenced the example of an oil leak in your car, right? If you don't tighten all of those things on the bottom, you're going to spill oil everywhere, right? So if we don't, allocate memory and then take it back after and deallocate it, then we'll have a memory leak. And usually your compiler will give you an error or less advanced, you could, ruin parts of your machine. So with that out of the way, we'll get into the PowerPoint for today and start talking about pointers and references. All right. Hopefully my internet's good and I'm not stuttering around anymore. Let me know if I am. I'm actually going to share this on the big screen so it's easier for you to see because there's a lot going on here. So I'll actually start a new recording and then um, switch my monitors.